I guess we're a political podcast now.
The satisfactory thing was going to run its course eventually.
Well, I mean, I was elected mayor of Satisfactory World, so now we need to discuss policy.
Start the game already!
That was a face.
Oh boy. Yes. So it turns out that I am still unable to breathe alcohol. Pro tip, when you put the drink in your mouth, you have to swallow, not breathe. Ooh. Oh, and sortilage burns on the way down because it's like alcohol.
Well, I guess that answers the question about what you're drinking, and I will use drinking in air quotation marks.
Nothing yet, but I'm breathing in some sortilage.
I got a decision to make. I got two things: a boring Laker lager, Waterloo Brewing, and a Happy Dad hard seltzer, Death Row Records, which is like a grape seltzer. I think I'll start with the lager and save this for dessert.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
The disappointment will be less palpable. I always find that seltzers are almost flavorless.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not like I'm looking for something to hit me in the face or anything, but it's like, hey, it's grape flavored. No, it's not. It's grape scented.
Yeah. But generally speaking, they don't taste bad.
Correct. Yes.
Right? So they're a safe option.
They're inoffensive.
Being a non-beer drinker, right? Somebody who isn't a huge fan of beers at large, sometimes I get something that is offensive, and then I get bone shaker.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is just bad.
But the Laker lager, mild, pretty hard to get upset about it.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
The regular stuff, working, golfing. My summer schedule has filled up so much that it's actually kind of shocking, right? Like I usually get to this point in the summer and I'm shocked again. It happens every year where I think to myself, how have I committed to this much stuff? Right. So I did manage not to sign up for the interclub golf tournament this weekend, which would have been, like 2 8-hour days on the weekend of playing golf and various functions and things. And I would have had fun. I would have enjoyed it, but I'm already tired. Like my body is protesting the amount of golf that I'm playing. Which just gives you an idea about how old and decrepit I am, is that, playing golf 3 or 4 times a week is actually causing me physical pain.
Yeah. I mean, that usually happens to me by like the 4th or 5th hole of one round.
Well, in theory, I've practiced and trained, and I do like special stretches and things and warm up, and I do yoga and whatnot, but it doesn't seem to help. It does help.
It's a repetition thing, right? And I don't mean like it's easier the more you do it. I mean that the number of strokes you take probably impacts how you feel. And after 4 or 5 holes, I've taken about as many strokes as you've taken shooting 3 rounds. Basically the same.
Maybe not quite that many, but yeah, I am getting slightly better. It's funny though, right? Like golf is one of those games where you get better without any evidence whatsoever. So you keep track of your handicap, and my handicap hasn't changed, right? I'm playing better, but my handicap is not going down. And I was really discouraged by it until I found, I don't know, some guy on the internet who was talking about it, about the same thing. And he's like, what I discovered is, because the way handicap works is the average of your best 8 of your last 20. Not important other than to say, my best 8 is not any better this year than it was last year. But the other 12 are about 20 strokes better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten more consistent, even though it's not gone down very much. So that's something.
Congratulations, I guess, ?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to anybody but me. Maybe one of our dozen or so listeners. Hi, folks. My
Hey,
boss from work has actually started listening, so we gotta. I can we scrub through the old episodes and just remove all the stuff where I was complaining about him?
no.
Damn. Well, all right. Well, it was a good job while it lasted.
Yeah. You know what? Summer's been filling up here too. Um, Obviously busy with work and
Yes.
getting busier, it seems. I know I said last episode that I wanted to slow down, and this week's been meetings about ramping things up like all week, which is a good problem to have, I guess. Certainly beats the alternative. But yeah, things don't look to be slowing down too much in terms of like extracurriculars. Really, not much to report on. I did get that standing desk that I was talking, or sit stand,
Yep.
dual motor electric thing. And I like the setup. I, speaking of old and decrepit, sort of put my back out like 2 days before it arrived. So the best thing I could have done would be to leave it sitting downstairs and get to it when I get to it, right? But I was determined that I was going to at least set it up. Hauled this heavy ass thing upstairs, spent the better part of an entire day hooking it up. And I mean, I'm impressed with it. The problem is I can't comfortably stand like
Mhm.
for, I don't know, more than an hour now. So my camera angle, if you're looking at it, kind of looks funny because I've had to yoink my camera way down because my monitor is now a fair bit higher and I have it sort of attached to the monitor mount behind it. And normally when I'm doing meetings and stuff now, I'm doing it in a standing position. I
Mhm.
wasn't going to be able to stand to record this entire show. I'm getting
No.
better. I don't want to imply that I'm utterly broken, but I haven't had the opportunity to really feel the benefits of standing because I haven't been able to break up my day enough. It's probably better for me. Like I've been, I'll stand 2 hours, I'll sit for an hour and a half, I'll stand for an hour, I'll sit for two. It's been a lot of back and forth like that, which for circulation and stuff is a lot better than sitting on my ass for 8 hours or 10 hours
It
straight.
is. Yeah, because it's not. It's funny because the research that I'm currently familiar with. Who knows? It could change next week because knowledge shifts. But what I've been hearing and seeing from the experts is it's not sitting that's bad for you. It's not standing that's bad for you. It's staying in one position that's bad for you.
Hmm.
So moving around is good. Like the human body is designed to move.
Yeah,
The funny thing is that walk it off is actually sometimes pretty good advice.
it is. It is. And I find generally when I have like back issues or issues akin to that, pulled muscles or whatever, the worst thing for me is to get into bed
Hmm.
because once I'm in bed, like I'll seize up and it'll be a week and a half before I can get out of bed.
Yeah.
A mild exaggeration, but that's kind of how I feel. So I need to get into a upright position, whether I'm standing, whether I'm sitting, and don't be stupid. But that tends to be the quickest path to recovery for me. So anyway, I got the standing desk set up. I like the setup. I haven't really had the opportunity to enjoy it the way it should be enjoyed. I did buy a anti-fatigue mat to go with it, and it doesn't feel much different or much better than the like I wear shitty dollar store like Croc sandals around the house,
Hmm.
and they have about the same amount of spring in them as this mat does. So I don't really notice the difference too much there. I may experiment with placement a little bit.
I can tell you that I have an anti-fatigue mat in front of mine as well. And what I've discovered is I spend at least the first part of my day either barefoot or in socks.
Yeah.
And I have had problems historically with my feet. I have abnormally high arches. So I get pain in my feet. I have some arthritis beginning in basically every joint in my body, but there's one joint in my big toe on my right foot that's been a real problem. And by not having my feet contained in stuff, I find I spend like a bunch of the day kind of flexing my toes,
Yeah.
and that pain has significantly improved.
Hmm.
My ankles have gotten stronger. like at the end of a round of golf, I used to be like, holy shit, I can't walk. Like my feet just hurt so bad. Like as long as I'm still moving, I'm generally okay. But we sit down for a beer at the end, right? And then I'll get up from that, and it'll be like I'm an 85-year-old man limping away from the table.
Yeah.
And I haven't like this year, I haven't found that.
Well, that's
So
good.
take that for what it's worth. It's anecdotal evidence of something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was doing barefoot when I was on the anti-fatigue mat. So
Mm-hmm.
again, like it's too small of a sample size, I think, to draw any conclusions. I probably need to, like, over the next 4 or 5 weeks, experiment a little bit with height just to
Mm-hmm.
really dial that in. I found that when I'm standing on the anti-fatigue mat, my angle isn't quite right, and I feel it in my back, and I just need to dial it in.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I sort of said it. I first of all, my work bought me my sit stand desk, and so did yours technically.
Yeah,
But they
technically.
sent a like it came directly from the furniture store, and the guy brought it in and set it up, which was fantastic. And it took him, I'd say a solid 2 hours. And he basically went, "Yeah, here's about where you want it to be. Adjust it as you." And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to spend some time fine tuning it. I have literally never moved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just bought one of the leg kits from Amazon, like just sort of no name
Hmm.
things. I didn't want to throw a lot of money at it until I figured I was going to stick with it. Right. I know Rich in particular said, you know what, if wobble's an issue, you definitely want to get a 4 leg setup instead of a 2 leg setup. And he's not wrong, but like the difference in price between the 4 leg
Oh
and
yeah,
2 leg kits were like it was 4 times as much. And I'm
yeah,
sure if I looked now, that'd be different. But this was going into prime days, so stock was already low. And I got this 2 leg set up for, I think I paid 269 or something for it. It was one of the better rated ones, dual
that's
motor.
pretty good.
Um,
Hmm.
there certainly were cheaper options out there, and it basically has like a 2 setting memory, so I can program the 2 positions,
Hmm.
and then I can make sort of incremental adjustments, like 10 millimeter uh, sort of nudges. Actually, you know what? It's probably like 1 millimeter nudges because it measures it in centimeters. So I got 1 decimal point. Um, what I've found is that like it's amazing the difference 1 or 2 millimeters makes.
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, like I just, even just setting it up and I'm like, okay, that feels about right. Let me just give it a little bit nudge and I can just like imperceptible. But because my entire position depends on sort of my arms being on a plane that is level with that, it changes my entire stance. So it's going to take me a while, just micro adjustments and trial and error to really figure out what's going to work. But yeah, so far, successful ish experiment.
Well, that's good. Have you used it to try and squish anything against your ceiling yet?
No, does not go that high.
Oh,
Um, I did have one issue. The tabletop that I put on it, I just have these shitty sort of half hollow IKEA style tabletops, right? Like it's basically the same material that like a cheap door is made out of.
yep.
And they're probably 100 years old. They're actually like stuff from my old office from like before I was hired there, like 20 years ago, kind of thing. And they were not flat. Like
Oh,
they'd potato chipped a little bit. And in trying to mount it to this top, right? Because it's basically just two sort of like a T frame type attachment
yep.
point on each side, where before it had just 4 legs on the outer corners, and with the weight in the middle, it allowed it to droop there. I had a hell of a time flexing the tabletops out enough to, it's like it's so flimsy. You drive screws into it, and the screws basically just pull right out of it. So I had to drive significantly heavier mounting screws into it than had come with the kit, just to get the one side to not go every time I like bumped it. Flipping it over, that happened like after sort of installing, that happened twice, where the one corner just went like, that's not right. now that it's been sitting with tension on it for a week and a half, 2 weeks now, like I could probably let those screws out and they'd be fine. Things have probably settled in, but fun experiment. Was a fun process of getting it together. In hindsight, I probably should have just bought one that came with the
Desktop?
tabletop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, I mean, I actually have two solid IKEA tabletops that I thought I was going to use as a desk. But they're only, I think they're 28 inches deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, that's standard desk size, right? No, that's bang my knees against the wall size. Right. Like they're too wide for me to sort of double stack them deep because I was living in the apartment when I bought them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're too narrow because I thought, okay, well, I'll put sort of the two of them together at 90 degrees and I'll have kind of an L-shaped desk. Except like I literally couldn't sit at it. I put a monitor and a keyboard on it, and I'm like, well, the keyboard's falling off. And of course, the desk that I've got now, I bought like sort of surplus from the office, and it's the size of the like an aircraft carrier. It's insane.
Yeah, it was large. I quite liked it when I was at your place last. I'm like, yeah, it's a premium desk. I would not want to try and get it up my stairs,
No,
like even in
no.
pieces. But
Well, I mean, it comes in flat pack, but it's not. You know how you get like MDF and it's significantly heavy. Well, this is actually high density fiberboard, and it's an inch and a quarter thick. It's insane.
yeah, no,
Like
the sort of individual solid piece looked like it weighed like probably 220, 230.
it's a lot. Well,
Yeah.
let me put it like this: like the desk, like the desk comes in 3 sections, and the desktop of each one of those sections is a 2-person lift.
Yeah.
Even in my stupid younger days where I'm like, I am strong and I can lift things, I would have been like, hey, can I get a hand with this? Because it's fucking heavy.
That's funny. So
Let's start the episode.
yeah, let's start the episode. We did that thing that we used to do all the time. Basically, we had the first 2 or 3 episodes that we recorded planned out. And then it very much became a, hey, we're going to record tonight. It's like, yeah, okay. We'll throw a doc together and it's empty until, I don't know, an hour and a half before we record. And that's kind of what happened today. And I thought, it's been a while since we did a serious topic. Listen, I know that Ian would be quite happy if we just sat and talked about Satisfactory for another hour and a half. So we'll do that as well, but I thought I could use a little therapy. So the discussion that I wanted to have basically boils down to the world is shit. Everybody knows what's shit. What do you do to sort of deal with that and cope with that? And I'm not looking to, pick a lane here in terms of political spectrum and beliefs. I think the one thing everybody agrees on at the world is shit. The reasons might be different. The one thing I've noticed in myself as I've tried to cope and react to it is I'm struggling to walk that line between like apathy and actively just trying to tune out the noise. I don't want to be apathetic. It's not helpful. It's not productive. Doesn't even really benefit me all that much unless I'm comparing it strictly against the other extreme. And I find myself sort of maybe going too far in tuning stuff out. I'm sure this is a common thing that a lot of people are going through right now. So I thought, hey, let's talk about it.
All right. So there's a fair bit to unpack there, and I'm having my normal problems of, okay, so I've been paying attention to things for probably a couple of years now, and I don't want to unload all of my revelations like in the next 2 minutes because then you'll go, all right, I'm going back to being apathetic. But I do. I think there's a couple of things. The first thing that I would say, and I'm pretty well convinced of this, is that apathy is actually harmful. Because you end up sort of getting blindsided by stuff. And we end up kind of like where we are now, being solidly in the middle of Gen X. I would blame us for that because apathy is our thing. Like it's literally, well, there's no point, so let's give up. And we gave up, and we've got what we've got. The second thing I would say is that there's a thing that I've been struggling with from a sort of philosophical point of view, which is like, where do you place your trust? And I sort of came to the question from listening to friends like name drop,
Mhm.
things like, and you can see it in the way that sort of most people approach things. It's like, oh, that's a Ford, it's good. That's a Chevy, it's crap. Right? Both of those statements are stupid. Because Ford makes good vehicles, Chevy makes good vehicles. Ford makes crap.
Yeah.
Everybody does both, right? And it depends on like the individual thing. It depends on the design. It depends on the time. It depends on like all kinds of stuff. But people get this idea that if it's attached to this name, then it's good, and if it's attached to that name, then it's bad. And it doesn't really matter what the names are because different people will have different names. And the question that popped into my head was like, do you trust a system or do you trust people or a person even? And I think like the metaphor that sums that up is if you've ever watched NCIS, right? In theory, the team that goes out and solves mysteries or whatever, right, are law enforcement people. But they can, like, every episode there is like a sort of moral quandary about how do we break the rules in order to make this come out right. And that's both good and bad, because on the one hand, if you have good people breaking the rules to do the right thing, then okay, well, it turns out good. But if you do that, then basically what you're saying is it's okay to break the rules if the result is what you want. So do you trust the people who are doing the things? And the more important thing for me there, and to answer sort of the question after that long meandering tangent, is you have to find a group of people to listen to that you trust. And I kind of want to find people from, I hesitate to say both sides of the aisle, but like from differing perspectives. And I do find that a lot of the time it's difficult to find a voice that disagrees with me that does so in a reasonable way. There are a few out there, but it's tough, right? So you almost always end up in an echo chamber, especially modern social media,
Yeah.
right? Because it's okay. I looked at this person and now my algorithm, like my YouTube feed, honest to God, is filled with the same 5 people over and over and over and over again. And I know there's other people out there with valid opinions, with valid sort of perspectives on the state of the world. And I'd love to find them, but it's hard to.
Well, and just the concept of trust is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like the line between trust and aligns with your biases and preconceptions, like I don't
That's
think
tough.
the average person out there knows the difference. I'm not even sure I know the difference sometimes, right?
I'm not sure there is a difference.
So when you look at sort of the state of the world and the tribalism and the us versus others, and listen, I've never hidden where I sort of sit on the spectrum of political alignment. You've accused me of being a filthy pinko commie many times.
Well, you are. Here's a funny thing, right? I've recently taken to referring to myself as a recovering right-wing misogynist and racist. And the reason that I phrase it like that is because that's kind of how, like, that's kind of the, I don't know, like friend group, family people, but like my parents are boomers, and all of the people that I was around as a young person were of that generation, and the casual racism that would just fly around all over the place was insane, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
absorbed that as a kid. And now I kind of reject it. No, now I do reject that. But there is still like the reflex in my brain. I have to like consciously overcome all of that stuff. And I've found, right, like as I've gotten older, I've kind of moved more and more to the left, right? Politically speaking, and more into, like, there's still some things that I'm like, I don't know if that makes sense to me, but I'm at least willing to like entertain the idea. But I have found that the position that I'm standing, it doesn't feel like it's changed. But I used to be sort of left of center, and now I find myself out on the far left end of the bell curve.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I've moved.
Well, I mean, historically speaking, like even ignoring the current age, just because talking about the way things now are just, you're picking a fight no matter what you say. Historically speaking, what is left and what is right has moved.
Do you know where left and right came from? Because I actually do know that.
Yep.
In the original formation, and now I'm going to get the details wrong, but the
Mhm.
gist is right. In the original formation of Parliament, I can't remember whether it was England or France that did this, but there were sort of two
Yeah.
factions, right? There were the ones who sort of supported the monarchy, and they're the ones who not necessarily against the monarchy, but were on the side of like the common people, right? And the group that was on the side of the common people stood to the left of the throne, and the people who supported the monarchy stood to the right of the throne.
Yeah.
So, in theory, that's what left and right means. In practice, left and right, depending on which political party you vote for, just means people you don't like.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's why I struggle with the idea of trying to find voices on quote unquote the other side, because from my perspective, so much of what it means to be left leaning, right leaning isn't even about politics anymore. It's about
No.
morality. And
Yeah.
so many of what I identify in my head as sort of key issues to me aren't issues that can be both sides, right? So you look at
Yes.
you as a recovering racist, right?
Yes.
From your current position now, there isn't a valid argument or case to be made for the other stance. It's
No,
not
there
okay to be
is.
any amount of racist from my moral point of view, right?
I have a devil's advocate point of view for you
Sure.
there. And it's not really, it's more semantic than it is anything else, because I agree with you. There is no amount
Yes.
of racist that it is okay to be. However, there is kind of a natural amount of, like, racist is the wrong word. We need a different
Yeah.
word, but you sort of choose who your tribe is, right? And anyone from sort of outside of that, you just naturally treat with suspicion because you don't know them, right? You don't necessarily share a common ground with them. Like, for me, that's not about like race or color or ethnicity or religion or whatever, right? It's about like, I mean, who's local and who's not, who are my friends and who are not,
Yes.
right? But there is a sort of thing that exists in everyone, that here's a person who looks like me, right? And we're so, human beings process so much more visual data, right? So we all look at, here's someone who looks like me, right? And our immediate assumption is they also think like me.
Mhm.
And it's almost always wrong. But again, it's that sort of like, you there's two sort of pathways in your brain, right? Like there's fast and stupid, and there's slow and smart. And the slow and smart part is also lazy. So fast and stupid always gets out there first and
Mhm.
goes, I have formed a conclusion. And you hope that slow and smart comes along and goes, no, you idiot. That's wrong. Let's
Yeah.
let's readjust. Anyway, so my point is that there is a sort of evolutionary reason for an amount of suspicion. And I'm now going to change my statement to say that, yes, you're right. There is no amount of racism that is correct.
Yeah.
But there is another thing that kind of can masquerade as racism that's probably
Sure.
kind of
Sure.
okay.
Somewhat related, just quick tangent. I want to say it was North O2, maybe. I watched a YouTube video recently about sort of the evolutionary source of Uncanny Valley and why things that sort of look human but not quite are so like viscerally unsettling for a lot of people. And it delved into potential evolutionary benefits of that, like in our deep history. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's parallels to be drawn there, maybe biological contributing factors to why we are the way we are. Anyway, I didn't
Yeah.
really want to get on the sort of left versus right sort of
Oh,
tangent.
it's hard. It's
It's
so
so
hard
hard.
not to, though.
regardless of where you, dear listeners, sit, at least we agree on that the world is sort of broken right now for whatever reasons we believe that to be true. And I really just kind of wanted to focus on like how as an individual we cope with that. How do we sort of moderate the overwhelming tidal wave of gestures broadly, right? So that we can kind of
Yeah.
go about our day to day in a way that isn't ultimately like feeling like you're beating your head against the wall futilely.
Unplug from the algorithm, I think, is probably this is a funny thing because I was really struggling with this over the last winter.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh no, like I'm deep in the throes of the world is on fire and everything is disaster. And then like spring came and I went outside and I talked to real people. Some of who this is where I find my source of people who disagree with me. I golf every Friday with a group of guys who are well, let me put it this way: the young guy in the group is 68, uh, and then there's me, and I'm in my early 50s. So there's like, like 68 and, 75 and a guy who I think is 80, but I'm not sure. He had a birthday recently and refused to tell us how old he was. Fair enough. Nice guy. Like I like him. But they have a very different perspective on the world than I do, right? And we have at the end of every round, we sit around and drink a beer and we typically talk about politics and religion, right? Which is sort of hilarious because we disagree fairly fundamentally on a lot of stuff. But when you're talking about it with someone face to face and having a good faith argument with someone who disagrees with you fundamentally is really refreshing. You
Mhm.
can't do that on the internet, right? And that's a thing that I found. Like I no longer look at Reddit. I will follow links to Reddit if I'm searching for satisfactory. How do I do this, right? And there's a Reddit link. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll go there because there are real people who are talking about that. But I'm not interested in watching people actually discuss things, especially in real time. Things like I don't know what the modern equivalent X, I guess, or Twitter or
Mhm.
Twitch or Snapchat or YouTube comments or anywhere that people are able to post anonymously, I basically ignore now. And it was hard to sort of disconnect myself from that.
Mhm.
And I know that my sort of rant there boils down to touch grass, but honestly, talking to real people makes a huge difference.
I've semi-related sort of found something interesting, and this is something that I want to say the last 3 or 4 months I've come to really notice. We've had conversations, I think, on this podcast about it, how I'd previously felt kind of immune to the algorithm. I went out of my way not to engage with it. I very rarely consume content that's fed to me via an algorithm. Like I curate people that I follow and I watch and listen to those. And my list of people that I watch and consume grows kind of organically as cross pollination and stuff happens sort of within that. But what I've discovered is that, like, yeah, that sort of leads you into an echo chamber. First of all, you're following people that kind of align with your preconceived notions of things, your own biases, or even just the subject matter isn't political. You have a type. And
Mhm.
what I found is that the bigger problem for me wasn't that I was being bombarded by the stuff that I disagreed with. Problem for me was how exhausting it felt listening to the people that I tend to agree with all talking repeatedly about the same stuff over and over and over and nothing changing. Like I didn't watch it live, but I used to watch a lot of clips. Again, tends to be a little bit on the left leaning side of things. The late night talk show guys, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, Jon Stewart. And, during like the 2016 election cycle, like that all kind of blew up and shifted into a sort of a new pattern, I think, that has sort of existed and it never kind of got out of that rut. And it really hit me that like I could watch something from tomorrow 3 weeks ago or 2018 and the message is the same. The complaints are the same. The sensationalization of stuff is the same. The status quo doesn't change. And listening to people in my own echo chamber was having a bigger impact on me than the people that I might fundamentally disagree with, because I was kind of tuning them out. So one of the things that I've had to do to, again, sort of walk that line between tuning out the noise and just completely disconnecting and being apathetic is really moderate and turn down the amount of messaging I get that would align with my beliefs, because it's so fucking depressing.
It is. In fairness to the late night guys and the writer's room, the problems between now and 2016 are fairly similar.
Oh yeah, and I'm not. Listen, the state of the world is the state of the world, and you know they're for the most part like they're appealing to the masses. The material basically writes itself at this point.
It does.
Tanya is still into watching all of that stuff, and teach her own. What you do, you right. Now I'm to the point where, like, if she's turning it on, it's on her phone. She puts it on the TV. Like, I almost got to walk out of the room. Like, my blood pressure goes up. I get angry. Like, it is a visceral, biological reaction to something that I shouldn't be reacting this way to. I didn't used to react this way to it, and now I do. And I recognize that I do.
I have found I've sort of backed away from traditional media because of that. At least partially because of the sort of monotone of the message, right? And to be honest, it's like you run out of material at some point. It's like, okay, the president of the United States is a dumpster fire. We've been making jokes about it since 2016. He's still a liar and a thief and a convicted sex offender. Like, where do you go from there? Like, what else? And how do you not talk about it, right? Because there's a sort of a problem where if you don't talk about it, A, you're going to be left behind in the ratings because it's what everybody's looking for. B, like, holy shit, we need to pay attention because some really bad stuff is happening. And C, well, it's the same stuff that keeps happening. How does this keep happening? And what I've sort of backed away from is I've backed away from stuff where I have to fit in my jokes between the commercials, right? And I've started listening to things like podcasts. I've mentioned before on the podcast, like I watched Steve Boots a fair bit. He does a daily live stream now that I turn on while I'm at work, and I'm not entirely certain that he's like the ideal person to get your news from, right? Because he very much does have like he's left of me, right? So he's very, very much out there on the tippy tip of the bell curve of left leaning. But he's a former teacher. He's very knowledgeable. He knows lots of stuff. He's a politics nerd. It's great because you get some really informative stuff. There's another guy I watch called The Rational National. And the thing that I like about these people is that they are not, I need to sell advertisements, so I need to get as many eyes as possible in order to sell as many ads as possible, right? Because what's his name that just got canceled?
Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert, right? Like there is the rumor is that he got taken off of the air because he offended Trump, and Paramount and Sky News or whatever want to merge, and Trump has to okay that,
which was just okayed and approved today, incidentally.
I mean, like there's probably it's probably a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B, because the late night TV is a kind of a dying thing. The people that advertisers want to reach don't watch that content anymore. Like, it's old people like you and me that watch that sort of content, and the advertisers don't care about, well, they care about you a little bit. They don't care about me anymore, right? Because I'm now at a point where, yes, I'm reasonably financially comfortable. I can afford to buy stuff, but I look at the shiny crap that they advertise and I go, I don't want that. I don't need that.
You
like
must consume.
My snowblower is 20 years old and it still works. I don't need a new one. My car is 10 years old and it still works. I don't need a new one. Now, I did buy new golf clubs this year because they were shiny. It's the first new set of golf clubs I've ever owned. But there's lots of like they just don't. So there's also some argument for like, hey, it cost. Do you know how much it costs to actually produce the Late Show? Like it's phenomenal. They're losing $40 million a year, and if there was a prestige reason to keep that, it would make sense to keep it. But there's a financial reason for this. So watching people who aren't like, I have to chase advertising dollars, like they're chasing patrons, right?
Mhm.
So what they do is say, like if you check out our Patreon, for example, which doesn't exist, and people give us $0 for this, like so you can probably trust us to tell you, dear listener at home, what we really think. You can't necessarily trust someone on TV to tell you what they really think or the truth. They're going to tell you what they think you want to hear, or what will get your eyes on the TV, or what will make you angry enough to keep watching so that they can sell advertising. So if you can find someone to listen to who is telling you what they think, there's a better chance that you're going to hear something that's honest. And not only that, it tends to be less sensational, right? Listening to people who will talk for an hour about electoral reform, for example, might be boring, but chances are they're telling you the truth. Listening to someone who says, the immigrants are coming to steal your pets and they're eating the cats and dogs, they're probably lying to you because they just want you to be angry so that you will consume the advertising that they're selling you. So I try to find people who talk quietly, at length, about something they sound knowledgeable about. All right, one more beer and then we can talk about religion.
I think, was it like episode 3 when I referred to God as like fan fiction or something like that?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. We were talking about if you had one superhero to pick for to fight for you in the arena, who would it be? And I'm like, give us some controversy. It'll drive up view count.
That's why we don't have a lot of listeners. We've been doing it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have to sell out first so that we can get Patreon and then we can become more genuine. I think that's how it works.
I
don't
think
know.
what we have to do is we really have to push the merch store where we have a t-shirt that says, fuck it.
Listen, I've threatened to do that. So is there anything that you mentioned sort of the algorithmic stuff, sort of mainstream media. Is there anything, or I would go so far as to ask anyone, that you've kind of cut out of your life as part of coping with the state of things?
Yes. I used to listen to JJ McCullough, which if you're on the sort of center to the right end of the political spectrum, you may enjoy his content. I don't think that he's bad. I found that he was making me angry, and that has nothing to do with him. That has to do with me, right? Like that's not it's not that he's you know he is a self-professed conservative, right? And I still have some beliefs in my brain that could be considered conservative in nature. And I'm not married to them. It's not like I must drive these principles at all costs. But I found like because he almost has I am a conservative and therefore I will vote conservative, and conservatives are awesome no matter how stupid they are. And I just had to stop.
Yeah.
It's like you used to have some good ideas, man, and now, in addition to the fact that he says a boot and a rund, which he very much like, it sounds really like he's pushing that hard in order to keep his American audience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's trying to make a living, so I'm not going to blame the guy too much. I just found that I no longer found him entertaining. I just found him irritating. He's a smart dude. He's got some commentary that is like really well founded. He's changed my mind about a couple of things. I used to, as a Canadian, I used to very much have my identity bound up in I am not American, right? And then he had a series of things about like the similarities between Americans and Canadians, and I had to go, you know what? We have a lot in common, right? Like we consume the same media, we watch the same shows, we watch the same movies, we have a lot of the same tropes. Yes, we have our individual stuff, right? Like we very much identify with the cobra chicken, as opposed to the bald eagle. But like we have more in common than we have different. We really
Sure.
do.
And I think, if you think that we are more different than most people, you're probably lying to yourself, or you're
Yeah.
probably ignoring, at very least, a lot of what's going on around you.
It's also important to consider that like Canada is a big place, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
from Newfoundland and people from BC are fairly different. Also, people from New York and people from California have some similarities, but lots of differences. People from Florida are Florida man.
Yep.
Like all across the South is a very different culture as well. So, like, we don't have a lot in common with people in the Deep South, but like the Midwest may as well be Canada. Let's make it the 11th province.
There we are. 11th province.
Or we could make it a territory. I mean, that's probably
Yeah,
more
that'll
apt.
piss them off. One of the things that I cut out was Twitter. I think I talked about it
No.
on the podcast. I literally I deleted my account. Now I don't want to say I've removed myself from social media, because I haven't. I ended up basically just moved to Blue Sky, and it's been so much better. But what I found again, like I didn't use Twitter algorithmically much. I stuck to the people that I followed. But after the muskening of Twitter,
The shittening?
yeah, the enshittification. I mean, it started before that, but as any product does.
Mm-hmm.
But like there was a big change, like a noticeable demarcation, and this was Twitter before, and now it's X.
Nazis.
Yeah, and the big thing that got me there was recognizing that like the people that I followed and followed for a reason were engaging with Twitter differently. And that exhausted me. All of the conversation where like, I limited my Twitter to like some like aggregated news stuff and like my hockey bloggers and, my nerds, right? But
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, those hockey bloggers and nerds were never talking about hockey and nerd shit anymore. They're talking about how terrible Twitter is. They're sort of taking it on themselves to combat the bots and the Nazis, and like that became by proxy all that I was getting out of people that I wouldn't sort of categorize in that group. Whether it was collateral damage or whatever you want to call it, it's like, oh God, this is unbearable. So I switched to Blue Sky, and this is going to bring me to my next question, which is there anything you intentionally do to try to inject positivity in your day? One of the things that I enjoyed
Oh,
on Twitter, and I get to a lesser degree on Blue Sky, but it is honestly the highlight of my day now, is I follow these stupid, and they're probably bot accounts, a lot of them are like not AI, but like automated accounts that just post like palate cleanser shit, like raccoons every hour. Every hour it posts a picture of a raccoon that it scrapes off the internet. Like otters, capybaras, just, cats with jobs is another account that I follow that's literally just, showing pictures of cats in weird places like stores, eating cats. Like going back to sort of the purpose of the internet, which was always just to share cat pictures, right? Going back to my roots. And that morning cleanse, like I get up, use the washroom, brush my teeth, start my coffee brewing. I'll flip into Blue Sky and I'll basically catch up because Blue Sky is not as active as Twitter was. Like, a lot of my followers or people that I follow didn't come over. So
hmm
post volume down. And what's nice about that is that like
Post quality
there's
up.
post quality up, but also like I can at 8 in the morning go back and, very, very quickly scroll through 8 hours of otters every hour and, raccoons every hour and that kind of stuff. And it's like the only posts that are happening. So if I look at like the previous 8 hours, I'm probably only seeing like 50 or 60 posts that I can kind of scroll through. And they're all fantastic. They brighten my day. They put a smile on my face. And then I get the caffeine into me and I get to work. And if I just abandoned social media entirely, I would lose that.
I mean, I don't consume an awful lot of social media as such. I mean, YouTube is basically the only thing I
Sure.
look at regularly. I mean, there's Discord, which is like very curated, right? Like I'm a member of several Discord chats that I never look at.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of positive things, I do this. This to me is very positive, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, like we've been doing this now for what a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. So this is episode 51 officially. There's some episodes that we'd recorded during that gap where we weren't releasing stuff that were like already episode 50, 51. There'll
Mm-hmm.
be lost episodes I release in the future someday or whatever.
Yeah, we'll take another long break and release the old one. So it's been a couple of years, and in that time, like, I mean, like shit, I have not had a relationship in my life that has lasted longer than 6 months, with the exception of two: this podcast and my wife. So,
It's
right,
true.
and I mean, we've had, yeah, I mean, we had a tiny beef. I can't even remember if it was a real beef. I mean, I think that we had a miscommunication at one point where it was like, "Do we really want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so. I just suck at communicating."
Yeah.
Anyway, so this to me is a really positive thing. Speaking of cats, though, that is hilarious because it was either yesterday or the day before. Um, I do my sort of morning routine, and part of that morning routine is scrolling through YouTube Shorts. And the algorithm has actually finally settled on the fact that no, I don't want to listen to your right wing pundits. I'm not interested in Christo fascists telling me about who a man is. But yesterday or the day before, my entire feed for the entire time that I was looking at it was just, top 5 cats being cats, right? I must have watched 20 cat videos in a row. And I'm like, this is the purpose of the internet. Because
Yeah.
I basically for like 10 or 15 minutes, I just giggled because it was like cats doing stupid things like fighting cucumbers, you know, or, dancing sideways up to a mirror and going "Bada!" and then running away, or like there's a couple that sort of everyone has seen, like the cat that goes to jump from one table to another and jumps like an inch and a half and just falls, right? All that kind of stuff where it's like this is just good, right? Like there is no one who can look at this and go, this shouldn't be here, or no one should see this, right? This is Everyone should see this. Everyone should. It's rated G for
Yeah.
everyone, and there's not enough of that in the world.
No, there isn't. And I think, that sort of content became such a meme that I think people sort of, as the rest of the stuff on the internet drowned that kind of stuff out. I think we need to actively decide to kind of go back to our roots and seek that out. Like, go watch some cat videos, go look at goofy memes. Hell, watch some porn. We're probably not watching enough porn nowadays, if we're being honest.
I mean, so much of here's a crazy idea for a porn video. There's two people and they're having sex and they are not related in any way.
Is that allowed?
Apparently not in the porn world. Oh my God. It's just, oh my God.
And things are the way they are for a reason, right? Like the algorithm in other
It
social
pushes it.
media
Yeah.
appeals to things that get views. So it really, really makes you wonder, like, are people out there into that incestuous content so much? Like, is that such a, does
I
that
don't think
tickle the
so.
right spot in enough people that it warrants
I
catering
don't
to
think
that?
so. I don't think so. There's another guy that I watch who is in he has some opinions where I go, yeah, I'm not sure, buddy. Scott Galloway,
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen him. He's everywhere. He's got like 17 podcasts, but he talks about a bunch of stuff, and there's a bunch of it that I disagree with. But one of the things that he says is like, blah blah blah, consuming porn, yada yada. So much of it is so violent, right? And like if you remember the sort of industry from our youth, and I don't like I'm not involved in it or anything, or really paying attention to it, but you definitely saw stuff on the news. Like most people who were involved in the industry were coerced into it in the like 70s and 80s, right? And I think that has improved, especially with the idea that you can now just like do it on your own, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't need to go to a studio where someone's going to fill you full of heroin and cocaine and tell you that you've got to sleep with 30 dudes today. But there is still an awful lot of like violence inherent in that content that is difficult to avoid. I'm not sure that I actually want to publish me talking about this.
Your boss is listening.
I know, right? Yeah.
We can cut this out, which means I will scrape this part and put it at the beginning of the episode.
Oh yeah,
this
this is the cold open. Let me just state this for the record. My favorite kind of porn is the porn where it looks like everyone is enjoying themselves.
Speaking of things that bring joy, do you want to sort of change the mood here and briefly talk about some Satisfactory?
Sure.
I used to be an adventurer like you.
Stay a while and listen.
Just for the record, that was a heck of a segue.
Listen, when you got it, you got it. This is why everybody listens to this podcast.
Subscribers in the tens. Someday, I keep saying stuff like that, and someday we're gonna I don't know, go viral for some stupid reason, and we're gonna have like a million subs, and it's gonna be so quaint that I say we have subscribers in the tens.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. It's deceiving. Actually, I had this conversation over dinner before recording today with Tanya and the sister-in-law about like, well, how many listens do you guys actually get? And, if all you look is at YouTube and the YouTube numbers, because we basically just, the RSS feed gets funneled into YouTube. It takes the audio and just automatically turns out a video version. And of course, nobody listens to us that way. Right. So you look at like all of these videos and it's like that one's got 4 views and 2 views and 6 views. And we're all alone out here.
We're screaming into the void.
Yeah. But, that's just not how people consume this shit. And Google, you done fucked up by killing Google Podcasts and hoping people are going to use YouTube Music. You can undo that mistake. Anyway, you look at our other numbers, and listen. I would still say hundreds of listens per episode, kind of thing. Not thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but enough that saying the 1 or 2 of you out there that are listening is already a little quaint, but still funny.
Yeah. It's important to understand for all of you listening, we don't do this for you. We do this for us.
We do. Like, if we ever do go viral and make it big, which let me be clear, we will never do.
No.
Nobody wants to listen to this shit. Except you. But if we ever do, like, I don't see my tone changing. I'm always going to treat this like nobody gives a shit about us, because you shouldn't give a shit about us, even if you do listen.
No. Hey, listen, we just did like, I don't know what, an hour of serious conversation about the state of the world. And here's the most important thing to take away from that. We're both full of shit. Like, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. Watch cat videos. I think everybody should be able to agree with that one, right? The world sucks. Cat videos makes it better.
Yeah, just dive down into the comments and tell us what you think about cat videos.
Yeah.
All other comments will be ignored, but links to cat videos will be scraped and, assiduously studied.
Yes.
Sorry. Satisfactory.
What are you doing? What are you playing? Have you had much time in Satisfactory this week? I know you've been so busy with other things now. Is the playtime suffering?
The playtime is actually suffering. I have a friend who is retiring. Well, by the time this comes out, chances are he will have retired, because he's like, his party is next week. And I am 3D printing a retirement gift for him. So I have spent some reasonably serious design time on that over the last week and a half or so.
Yeah.
I have actually gotten some sleep in the last 2 weeks. So yes, the playtime is, I know, right? So the playtime is suffering. I'm also at that point, like, I remember when we first started talking about Satisfactory, and you said, I'm at the point where I either have to start a new playthrough or I have to get serious about building my factory. I am at that point. And I have made the decision to sort of set up almost manual crafting stations to get to tier 9. because I know that I want to do nuclear. I have explored the whole map now. I have radar towers and power all across the map. And so my plan is roughly this, and not necessarily in this order, is to build a railroad as a ring around the entire map, and use that with probably multiple trains on it to shuffle resources to wherever it needs to go. Like just raw resources like ores and gases and water and oil and whatever, right? Like take it, just have stations where it stops and drops off its stuff to whatever kind of factory that one is. Because I've got conveyor belts going all over the place and it's disgusting. The other thing that I want to do is I want to get to tier 9, and basically what I've done is I've got all of the basic stuff. I have at least one factory that's pumping into a dimensional storage depot.
Yeah.
So I can just go into my storage depot, grab out 5 stacks, dump it in this machine, let it churn out, turbo encabulators or whatever it needs to make the next space elevator part, because I want to finish the game, right? So I want to get to that just so that I can see it. And then I'm toying with the idea of starting over again. But if I start over again, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a persistent world. Like I'll make a dedicated circuit. I have 4 or 5 computers in my closet that would run this as a server. And just set that up, and then like, here it is. Let's go play when we want to play and build what we want to build, and just let it run until we run out of frames.
Yeah,
I do really enjoy making trains. It's foolish, but I love it.
and I've played with trains. I like trains. I've never fully committed to trains, and that's one of my goals for this playthrough, is to get the full train network established. I'm not going to move raw resources much, but like I want to do initial processing on sort of site, not too far from the resource nodes. But I think I'm going to try to do, because my last few playthroughs have been pretty like decentralized, right? Like I'd have a factory over here doing this, I'd have a factory over here doing this, I'd have a factory over here doing this. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on this game was aesthetics.
Mm.
And as part of doing that, I think I want to build, like, go back to what I tried to do in my first playthrough and do a big sort of like mega base, mega factory that's doing all of my advanced production, and train everything into it so that I have an excuse to build complex train logic and then focus on the aesthetics for that. I just finished a project. I don't know how much you got into like fuel generation. I normally, like, coal for me is a stopgap. And then as soon as I unlock the alternate recipes for the initially the diluted packaged fuel, because you can get that at a lower tier, lower phase. I roll out that because it's so much power early in the game. Like, you can do just that and never have to go nuclear or never have to get into like some of the more advanced fuel blends if you don't want to.
The funny thing is that I actually originally built my train network specifically because I needed to get sulfur to my coal plant to use compacted coal because I have run out of power.
Yeah, I've never actually done that with coal generation myself. I jumped to fuel. What I've done this playthrough is, when I got into the high enough tier where you can just get the diluted fuel recipe that you make in the blenders, so that you don't have to do the sort of refinery package or unpackage or extra refinery kind of loop for the diluted package thing. I set myself up some aesthetically pleasing sort of modular blueprint stuff, and I now have like 8 towers, power generation towers that are sitting on the water that look nice, all done up windows, shiny polished concrete, like paint schemes for the stuff inside. I wrapped that up over the weekend and super happy with it. I'm not even sure what I'm sitting at in terms of total power generation now. It's probably something like 60 gigawatts or something like that. Like it's enough that I don't need to to really start messing with power generation now until I'm getting into doing like particle accelerator stuff and some of that really heavy stuff if I'm going to do it at scale. So I now want to start
Yeah.
focusing on like mega base, do a nice sort of train loop. Like I'm going to take my time. I know part of me was like, this is the playthrough that I'm going to, beat the game so that I can see the post 1.0 ending. I think I'm going to wait. I think I'm going to do kind of what you did, but even slower. I'm going to focus on tearing down all of my placeholder stuff for sort of not my starting factories, because those have been torn down and replaced, and then that was torn down and replaced. But even the stuff that I've sort of spread out in the world now that's kind of ugly, but I needed
Mhm.
some of the, like the bauxite processing and the sulfur processing and the stuff that you kind of get away from your starting area, typically to find. Like that's the kind of stuff where version one of those was still just platform, big, foundations floating in the sky kind of thing. I want to
Uh,
make some nice buildings for that, but I want to have like smaller modular buildings out in the wild, doing sort of that first level of processing, bring everything to a mega structure, and make that sexy as hell if I can.
I would like to do something sort of similar. Like I really like the idea of doing sort of the initial processing on site. And then I think that I probably want to do something like regional factories for a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
Right. And then like maybe 3 or 4 more advanced stuff. I'm thinking like the top, like having explored the whole map now, I think it kind of makes sense to do like that train ring around the
Oh,
outside
sure, absolutely.
and then do kind of like a star in from there and then like an inner ring that runs out like around those and then sort of bring it together for the really complicated stuff in the center.
Yep.
I don't know. There's an awful lot of resources out there, but I'm looking at like how much uranium do I have? Oh wow, like not a lot. Like there's an awful lot of little bits of it lying around just to be a pain in the ass.
Hmm.
But as far as actual resource nodes go, there's like what, 3, 4?
But you don't need a
Not
lot of
many.
it. That's the
I
thing,
hope
right?
not.
Like you don't need a lot of it. Yeah. The other thing that I want to do this playthrough is like explore some of the more complex but more efficient alternate recipes. Like I've always,
Hmm.
I get all the alternate recipes. I typically go through and try and find every hard drive on the map until I've, got enough that I learn everything that I can learn. But in most of my playthroughs up to this point, I've often taken the path of least resistance if it was good enough. And while still enjoy doing that, right? Like there's a lot of everything from your sort of ore recipes, right? Your pure ingots, which moves your throughput through refineries, lots of water, through to complex sort of aluminum stuff, like stuff that's like requires nitric acid, or you get these sort of weird chains of like doing recycled plastic by doing rubber production and fuel production first and sort of mixing that all together. And like, I don't care about the efficiency part of that, which is sort of what those are aimed for. It's going to force me to think about the systems a little bit more intelligently. And as I'm going through the process of like designing things out and taking my time, I think trying to challenge myself to do the more complicated movement of resources, belt runs, pipe runs, all of that kind of stuff that comes with those more complex recipe sort of funnels should be interesting. I might get part way into it and just be like, this shit's too hard. You know,
Uh,
iron
I'll
pipes
tell
for
you
days
what,
now.
it feels like work,
Oh yeah.
right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I told you my revelation after the first 60 or 100 hours where it's like, holy shit, this is a job, right? And it very much does feel like that, but because of the feedback that you get from it, which is almost immediate, it feels like a very satisfying job.
It's in the name. Roll
Yeah.
credits. Oh, and for the record, smells like grape. Doesn't taste so much grapey.
Yeah, it tastes like club soda.
Yeah. The that sort of devastation that you get when you like you buy the Kool-Aid that's already mixed with like the sugar and stuff. And it's like this package makes, I don't know, 4.5 liters or something like that. And you sort of just portion it out wrong because it's in a bag and you're not measuring it out. And you realize you've already made 2 jugs out of it, but there's that little bit in the bottom of the bag still, and you don't want to throw it out. So you're like, yeah, I'll do half a jug. And really there's like enough Kool-Aid in there to do like a mug.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say a cup.
And you taste it and you're just like, oh, this is purple water.
Yeah. The food coloring is definitely the most. Also, if you pour that stuff out into a glass, you will realize that it is clear.
Yeah.
Because they all are. It's literally just water with aroma of grape. And the suggestion of grape is more from the color of the can than it is from the taste of the contents.
I love me some fake grape stuff, though. I think it's my favorite of the like drinky, juicy flavors. Yeah.
Great.
Which is always disappointing when you buy grape drink and you look at the ingredients and the first ingredient is apple juice.
Yeah. The first ingredient of everything is apple juice because apples are cheap. And people, this is a funny thing that I've noticed about the food that we eat. I've been, ruminating over this is going back to our serious topic a little bit. Ruminating over the idea of consumerism and what we do and how everything is a product. I went to visit my parents this weekend. I didn't call you because I wanted to actually get home for a change. But I was down in the county last weekend, and my parents watch a lot of TV. So I'm sitting there watching TV, and I'm like, every 10 seconds, there's this series of products, and I'm like, you don't need any of this crap. Right? Like some of it could be moderately useful. Like if it was cheap enough, it'd be like, okay, that's a thing that I would use. How much does it cost? $49. I don't need one.
Yeah.
Right? It's like Swiffer is a wonderful product, but it's like it's a rag on a stick. Why is it so expensive? It's a rag on a stick. Like, yes, it's a very highly engineered stick and it's made from, I don't know, like compressed polar bears and dead baby seals. But it's just a stick with a rag on it.
See, but there's this mental thing, right? Like if you pay more for it, all of a sudden it feels like that rag works better. It doesn't. It never does, but it feels like it works better.
No.
It's like the Volkswagen of rags on sticks.
Yeah. I mean, I just unwind a coat hanger and, take my old underwear and I use that.
Yeah, but then you're missing out on the best part, which is the consumable aspect of Swiffers, right? Like they've run the printer ink scheme for cleaning your floors. Use this rag and then throw it away. Buy another rag. It's great.
Why don't I just wash this rag?
No. No. That's way too. You don't want to get your hands dirty, do you?
Oh, Jesus. I kind of do, actually. I enjoy getting. I planted some trees in my front yard a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I told you, my boss's son is a forester, and they did a tree planting in the spring, right? And they're planting these pine trees, and of course they have thousands upon thousands of seedlings. He's like, he came home from planting. They've got like 100 left over. Does anybody want any? So I said, yeah, I'll take a dozen or so. So he sent them over, and you stick them in your fridge. And I mean, they sat there since, I'm going to say April, right? And they're still nice and green, and they're growing in my front yard. So I went out and planted them last week, and like it was really satisfying digging a hole and planting a tree.
Yeah,
get your hands dirty. It feels good.
Yeah, you know what? Like I've become an old man in that regard. Like I do enjoy the getting out and doing a little bit of gardening and like cutting the grass. I never understood when I was a young person because like I cut grass for a living when I was like 13, right? Like that was one of my first jobs. I got a lawnmower. I can walk my ass down the street, cut grass, earn a little bit of money. $10 a week, $5 a week, go do somebody else's grass. That's how I got my job at the hayloft, was as groundskeeper there, which turned into cleaning the toilets that would, stop working halfway through a Saturday night. Listen, you appreciate any job after doing that.
Yes.
But I always looked at, like, you take a walk through town, suburbia, and you see these older men out cutting their grass, smiling like they're enjoying themselves. These
Mhm.
fools, what could you possibly enjoy about cutting grass? I could never fathom it. And it isn't even just the pride angle, right? Like, it's just I got pride as a kid. I enjoyed having things that looked nice. But cutting grass, this thing that you have to do every week, it's dumb. Who decided that having grass, this invasive species of plant, was a good idea in the first place? It grows and you have to cut it, and then it just grows again. And now as I've gotten older, it's like I'm working hard to have good grass. The place that we moved into this spring doesn't have a lot of front yard. It's got a pretty decent sized backyard, but the front yards, not the people that were in here before us, but the people that owned the house before then, had like ripped everything up. They'd put down that like landscaping fabric stuff, and then they
Mhm.
just mulched on top of it. It might have looked nice for one season. I imagine they probably did it to sell the house, like, something on the cheap or whatever. By the time we moved in, that stuff, it all was half rotten, like enough sort of debris had grown on top of it to turn it into this like sandy soil. I've been out, I've wasted so much money on grass seed because I didn't want to invest the money to get like sod. It's not my place. I'm renting, first of all. So, like, I'm not going out of my way to spend a lot of money on these little projects. So I thought, I'll
Mhm.
do some grass seed. And one of the problems that we've had, I had my plumbing issues moving into this house, is I don't have outdoor water yet. I don't have a tap outside. So I haven't been able to water the grass. And water's so expensive that I didn't want to have to do a lot of watering anyway. So I've had this dumb routine where I'm looking at the weather forecast and it's like, oh, we're going to get some rain. We're going to get some rain. And I'm running out and I'm seeding and I'm breaking seeds in and I'm trying to make sure that I time it right so that the seed isn't cooking before we get the rain. And I've been let down by the forecast so many times. It's like 100% chance of like 10 to 15 millimeters of rain. And then, like, I watch this system go by. You get a little sprinkle for just a moment to tease you, and then it fucks off, and I can watch my seed baking in the sun. That's been what it's like. But I get the enjoyment in it now, or I still don't get it. I just feel it. It still doesn't make sense to me, but I feel it.
It's the same thing you get from Satisfactory. It's like, here's a task that I'm going to do and I'm going to succeed or fail. But either way, there is there is nobility in the effort. And I think that's what it is. I still hate cutting grass. I've cut my grass twice this year, and as far as I'm concerned, that's twice too many times.
Didn't have a lot of yard where I was. Like, it was literally a postage stamp sized little front yard that the last 4 or 5 years I was cutting it with a little electric weed eater. Right? Like, there
Hmm.
wasn't enough grass. I had one of those like bush reel mower kind of things for
Hmm.
a few years that I used, and it was kind of nice. But yeah, that thing kind of fell apart, and I wasn't going to spend money on a real lawnmower. I was excited moving into this place. I went in, and again, I didn't spend a lot of money. I sort of waited for something to pop on sale, but it's like, oh, here's a nice little cheap electric lawnmower, part of the Ryobi One Plus system of stuff. So the big batteries for it work with a lot of the little hand tools and stuff that I have, my drill and my weed eater.
Hmm.
It's been a satisfying experience. Dumb, but satisfying.
Yeah, but there it is. The guy across the street from me, I mean, you saw him when he was here. He cuts his grass on a diamond pattern. So he literally cuts it twice every time to get that perfect diamond pattern. And when we first moved in, they came across to talk to us, and I was like, "You're gonna hate us because I don't. I only cut my grass when someone yells at me for long enough that I can't take it anymore. Otherwise, let it grow. It's fine. We've been overseeding with white clover and creeping thyme. So my hope is in the next 3 or 4 years, it's just going to be this doesn't need to be cut. There's nothing out there to cut,
Uh,
and that would be ideal. But I get it. I get the sort of some of it is like it's the same thing that I notice my wife does, where she's like, You have to hang up art, get the right curtains and the right carpets, and arrange things just so, right? It's like nesting. It's like building out your territory. Like this is mine, and this is how I want it to look, and I am pleased with how it looks.
Yeah, I don't think that part of it resonates with me yet. It might.
No?
Just like, I mean, yeah, the front yards, I want to have them looking good enough that like they're not an eyesore. But even the stuff out back, it's like I don't even particularly want to invite people over to see it, to show it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's the personal satisfaction, I guess, in like having my space that is, the way I like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really come at it from the showy angle, but I do think what you said about it being like playing the game Satisfactory to bring this full circle is true. There's the gameplay loop that's sort of underlying both of those things that is probably what appeals to me.
You should look into again. You remember the original Windows screensavers?
Mm-hmm.
One of them was a lawnmower that would go back and forth across your screen in stripes. You'd probably get some satisfaction out of that again.
Yeah, I thought about it. I downloaded Power Wash Simulator like when it first came out. Like the ultimate dad game, right? And it didn't like I didn't get it, like it didn't hook me. I understand sort of the like turn your brain off kind of catharsis of it, but like short-lived. It's like, oh, this is a nice novelty for an hour or so, and then when it feels like work, the justification for playing it sort of dies, which is not what happens with something like Satisfactory. It feels like
Yes.
work, but like the way it rewards you still sort of lives on, like it evolves.
The weird thing, like this is I've been trying to think about what the secret sauce is behind Satisfactory, and a large part of it is just, and I think we've talked about this before. Like for me, it's just a game. Like you just play it. There is no, you have to do this in order to do this in order to do that. I mean, there's some of that. You have recipes where you're going to build stuff in order to build other stuff and whatever. But it's like if you don't want to get past tier 1, you don't have to.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like a parallel to be drawn between Satisfactory and people that like puzzles. Jigsaw puzzles, like word searches, crossword puzzles. Like it's a
I love
puzzle that you
logic
create for
puzzles.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost it's similar to the way that I like to design puzzles and traps in Dungeons and Dragons, which is here's the premise. I don't necessarily have one solution. Do something cool. That's the solution.
Yeah. But you actually need to come up with a solution in Satisfactory.
You kind of do, yeah.
Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, do you want to talk about it at all?
I do. I would, however, like to put up the "Let's all go to the lobby" intermission sign so that I can go and deposit my rental beer.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
You left and I just sort of zoned out, found myself contemplating Don King's dead hairpiece, searching for meaning.
Yeah. The amount of muff covering my microphone is too damn high.
Let's talk about some D&D. What D&D?
So I would like to point something out because, of course, those of you listening at home cannot see our show notes. But the first line is, not sure if there's much to talk about here, followed by 17 paragraphs of stuff to talk about, all of which written by Shane.
There's an irony in it when you look at the content of what I wrote.
Yeah. But there's stuff to talk about there, just not a lot.
It's summertime, which means it's hard for us to get everybody together to play D&D. Our asshole DM got busy with things like golf and visiting family and stuff. Starting to think he's not taking our game seriously enough.
Well, you know what? I'm putting into it exactly what I've been paid to put into it.
Valid. Funny
But
enough,
yes,
we're not on a summer hiatus for my Tuesday night game yet. We had a couple of weeks where we were not getting people together. So I said, you know what? Just take the month off. We'll come back. We'll look at that first Tuesday in August. We'll see if everybody can kind of commit to stringing together a few weeks. And if not, we'll probably end up just taking the rest of the summer off. So we're probably on a summer hiatus as well, which is fine. I find myself having the itch already. I've been showering twice a day trying to get rid of it. It hasn't helped.
there's a cream at the drugstore you can get.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to ask about that one. But I thought, you know what? Take advantage of this time. A little bit of self reflection. As I've mentioned in earlier podcasts, we just sort of wrapped up, not like the climax of a campaign that I've been running for 3 years, but we hit that sort of like Avengers 1 part of
Mhm.
the overarching storyline. And the combination of losing some players and just the general fatigue associated with like ramping stakes up with that game, it felt like a good time to just like put it on the shelf for a while. I think at some point in the future, when the time is right, we'll revisit that storyline, we'll revisit those characters and kind of pick things back up. But I do see that being maybe a year down the road, maybe 2 years down the road, maybe it never happens. One of my players is running a mini campaign. So I'm not even DMing for that. And different vibe, sort of an all bard party. It's kind of one part Battle of the Bands, like, Rock of Ages kind of thing, one part like Glee. So far, we've only had a couple of sessions, but it's interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes. That's probably going to run for a couple months anyway. So I'm picking away at some prep for kicking off a new game. It'll probably be sort of a mini or mid-length campaign in the homebrew game settings we were kind of developing and talking about before. But before I sort of get into kicking that off, I thought, let's do a little bit of self-reflection. You got some time. Try and be a better DM. What can I do to hone my craft?
Oh
I'm
man.
Yeah, I may talk to the players, a little bit, but like there's some things that I don't even want to say like get better, more of evolution stuff that I
Mhm.
recognize in my own style or my own delivery that I want to improve upon. And I know that you have in the past few years sort of picked up games, put them down, picked them up, put them down as our groups have sort of paused. You've run other games on the side. I'm curious, have you ever sort of identified areas of for your own improvement and sort of challenged yourself to do differently as you've sort of picked up new games? And if so, what? How did it go?
I have. I may have mentioned this before because it came. I remember reading advice from a snarky DM. I can't remember what it was actually called, but it was a person sort of discussing this kind of idea. And one of the things that stuck with me, because this was years ago, was we all love to do purple prose, like you see before you a castle rising out of the mists with the full moon behind it and wispy clouds scattered across the sky. In the distance, a wolf howls, right? All of that is very good, but if you're doing it a lot, it kind of gets old,
Yeah.
right? And his advice was it's a big spooky castle. Tell people it's a big spooky castle. Let their imagination do the work,
Mhm.
right? So give them what they need in order to imagine their own version of what it is that you see, right? It's a cobblestone road. You don't need to describe the color of the rocks. Doesn't matter. It's a small creek that meanders down the hillside. That's it. Boom, one sentence. Like there's a place for both, right? Like if for example, going back to our Curse of Strahd campaign, like when you come upon the castle Castle Strahd for the first time, you need a little bit of extra stuff to say, like, this is an epic moment. For the rest of it, like, you shouldn't have that, right? Because when you do that, and I mean, here's the funny thing. Like, I'm describing this idea using a million words when literally it boils down to let the players' imaginations do some of the heavy lifting. Use extra description and mood setting when it's a big moment rather than, it's a tavern. It's your average run of the mill tavern. The innkeeper is fat, wearing an apron. It's kind of dirty. Done. Everybody knows what that looks like. Everyone's mental picture of it is slightly different, and that's fine. And that was something that I really struggled with because I love words. I love the craft of stacking one word on top of another to build an image. But listening to one person talk for a really long time, like you're all doing right now, gets old.
You've ruined my bit. So the irony in all of that is the one thing that I had identified specifically, and I'll read from my notes. Quote, one of my focuses going into the next game is to get better at painting a picture without slowing the game down with lots of words. I want my new campaign setting to have a distinct feel. My goal is not to paint the whole picture when describing something, but to give the player enough prompts and juicy morsels to allow them to paint the picture for themselves in their head. And of course, I wrote the 5 paragraphs sort of around that, talking about what I wanted to do. So yes, I agree with sort of what you've done in the past, and I recognize that flaw. I think I'm going to be a little bit more specific about it in me. Like, I'm really good about communicating emotion, and like I resonate well with my players, right? Especially as we get into the game and I've sunk my teeth into their motivations and stuff. This is why I'm always harping about, like, why is your player here? Why are they doing what are they doing? Because like that's the marrow that I want to sort of hook into. And if I can get that, their emotions become puppets on strings for me. And like I can rile my players up when it's appropriate to do so, and I can get them to buy into stuff. The emotional stakes are always high when they need to be high, whimsy when they need to be whimsy. And that's the part of the game that I'm good at. What I'm less good at is sort of the environmental stuff. So it isn't that I want to describe the individual cobbles in this case. But what I'm trying to do is sort of establish a tone that is different from most of the D&D stuff that I've played with my players. So I guess a good mental exercise would be you're trying to run a game of cyberpunk, right? I'm doing something that is not cyberpunk, but there's parallels to be drawn here. Cyberpunk isn't typical D&D stuff. Having played the video game and experienced some of the cyberpunk genre and stuff within the cyberpunk brand, the challenge I'm facing is to communicate sort of the thematic stuff and the stuff that makes it distinct without painting the whole picture. So I need to sort of find the juicy morsels, communicate them efficiently about this is what's cool about this world and the stuff that you're not going to necessarily infer without those prompts while not talking for long stretches of time by myself. So
it's really tough. And the reason that, I mean, I did actually read, I skimmed your notes.
When you write 5 paragraphs, that's about the best you're going to get.
Also, I'm too drunk to read. It's hard to focus. So the reason that I went on about it at length is because I struggled with that a lot. Like, I really struggled, and I still do. Like, I still have to make a conscious effort. And the one thing that sort of popped into my brain while I was thinking about this is, like, the flaw that I see in myself is that I try too hard to put thoughts and feelings into my players. Right? Like, there's times when you can say something like you feel an irrational fear, right?
Yeah.
That could make sense, but there's times when it's like I really need this character to act in a certain way, and I'm not good at prompting that.
Yeah, that's tough, right? Because like as a GM, like you should almost never tell your characters what to feel and how to react to something. So what you need to do is evoke that feeling or reaction,
yes.
and knowing what strings you can kind of pluck to do it. That's a balance, right? Because that comes out of having developed characters.
Hmm.
You have to have those pressure points. And if you don't have those pressure points, then you're stuck either dancing around the situation or
Or forcing it.
vaguely telling them, ooh, you feel heightened sense of tension. Like it's just
Right.
empty words at that point, empty calorie emotions.
Yeah, and my struggle is that I have a whole bunch of difficulty sort of, I don't want to say connecting with people, but like understanding how other people feel, right? Like I'm very, very bad at picking up social cues, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I am a stereotypical nerd, right? Like you could wrap a little bit of tape around my glasses and it'd be like, yeah, that fits. So like there are times when it's like there's stuff that happens at the table. One of the reasons that I really enjoyed when you did the synopsis of our D&D sessions is because I could then see, oh, okay, that's what everybody was picking up, right? Because I miss a lot of that stuff. And I mean, I dance around it a bit and so I pick up some of it, but like there's lots of it that I just like it just goes right over my head. Right. So that's definitely a weakness for me like that. But it's yeah, you're right. There are very few times when you should tell a character what to do or to feel. With the possible exception of like you feel fear and it's because it's coming from outside, like for dragon fear or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Whereas like here's the thing and you recognize it's not coming from inside of you. Now it's a cue to figure out like what the heck is this?
yeah. Fortunately, with that kind of stuff, I've found there's a sort of an easy cheat, and that's to just be lazy and let the player do it. And you'll see even some of the best DMs like do this all the time, and you almost don't notice because it's pretty seamless. But either asking your player just how do you feel, or prompting them with the cues, right? This, you tensions wrapped up, anxiety's heightened, you feel on edge. Like go so far as to say that, and then you ask the player, what's going through your character's mind right now? And let them run with it has been a sort of
Mm-hmm.
powerful tool, because like that's when you get those characterization moments kind of coming out that you didn't know were there about the character because they didn't exist in writing in a way that you would possibly know, or made up sort of out of whole cloth in the moment in a lot of cases. But when you allow the player to sort of narrate like that, and specifically put them in the spot, like ask them pointedly,
Yes.
what's going through your head as you're freaking the fuck out right now? Or what's going your head as your anger takes hold, and your blood pressure rises, your heart pounding in your chest, and let them sort of describe that experience from their own perspective, which is, unfortunately doesn't apply to what I'm trying to do, which is sort of communicate something about a world that the players don't know yet. Still trying to play with the best way to handle it. I think playing to the idea of feeling more than sort of descriptive stuff is the way to go. Like speak about the world in sort of its emotional nuance rather than focusing on the visuals and stuff. Like you can allude to the things that you sort of hear and stuff like that, but let the players kind of put it together.
So, all right. So I have two things. The first thing that I want to touch on is that, I mean, you sort of asked for help and ended up giving me a whole bunch because the idea of giving like a player a prompt to say, like your heart pounds, your blood pressure rises, and you're frightened about the situation. Now, describe to me how your character feels and what they're thinking is not something I ever considered doing, and it's an incredibly flexible and powerful thing to do, right? Because putting somebody on the spot then makes them go, oh, crap, I actually have to come up with something. And whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, is going to be awesome, right?
Mhm.
Having said that, here's an idea. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but here's an idea. Uh, I remember I think it was in high school. So, back before cars were invented. I remember talking to a guy who went to a convention and he was playing Dungeons and Dragons, DM'd by Gary Gygax, and I always forget the guy's name, but he's the one who wrote the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons, the blue books, the ones after the basic Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
It's abbreviated BECMI, and the last one's Immortals, the first one's Basic. I can't remember what the other ones are. Basic, Expert, whatever. And he said, like, so we sat down at the table, right? They handed us character sheets, and then they started having a conversation. And he said, like, it was so alien to the way that he had ever played before. He's like, I don't know how to interact with this. But the conversation, like, so the two of them are having a conversation, right? Like, it started off with, you're in a tavern, and these two people start having a conversation, like they're sort of co-DMing the thing. And then they involve the players in the conversation. That memory popped into my head because I started thinking about, like, how do we actually experience, like, how do we as people experience the world? And typically, the thing that we find most important is the conversations that we have, right? Like, you and I are having a conversation right now. Like, would this thing that we're doing be as impactful to us if we weren't talking to each other? And I think the answer is no.
No.
I mean, maybe we could sit here and just like stare at each other on the video cam or the webcam for like almost 2 hours now, and it would be just as awesome, but I don't think so. So a lot of how we experience the world is about how we communicate and talk to each other. So, I mean, in our campaign, I have introduced like a DM run character, partially because you guys just need somebody to cast Identify from time to time. But but also because like it's useful to have someone who can just talk to you about stuff rather than the DM just monologuing about shit, right? It becomes a conversation instead. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like a character who's with the party, but having a conversation with like I guess like especially if you're introducing people to a new setting, it kind of makes sense for them to be fish out of water somehow, right? So that they have to ask questions, so that they have to see conversations and interactions happening that sort of describe and give you a sense of how the world works and how people in because the most important thing I think about most worlds, especially when we're talking about like theater of the mind, Dungeons and Dragons type stuff, is how do people communicate with each other? Do a husband and wife have an equal relationship? Do they not have an equal relationship? Is it a matriarchal society? Is it the kind of thing where like you don't see children? Is it the kind of place where kids play in the street? Right? Like all of those things are really subtle, but they give you an insight into how all of the people in your world look at your world. Right. And who cares whether your buildings are made of wood or stone or brick or,
Yeah.
or steel or whatever, but how do people feel about where they live and who's in charge and where the food comes from and how much food there is? And I think like you get those more from conversations than you do from descriptions of what it looks like. Right. So I mean, I guess, TLDR, have an NPC strike up a conversation. Hey, did you see the results of the latest, muckball championship? I cheer for the Crusaders. Who do you cheer for? And then, the question is, what the heck is muckball? Oh, you must be from out of town. Let me take you to a game. This is the greatest sport ever.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know me, like this idea was not even partially formed when I started talking. I just sort of felt it out as I was making noises with my meat flaps.
That's how all ideas start. Meat flaps. Lots of good things start with meat flaps.
Let me tell you about pie. That's what I stick in this hole that I make noise with. We need to do this more often because, like, I have like part bottles of booze all over the place in my house that I need to empty out. Speaking of which, drink number 3 is going into the glass now.
Still sort of lounge?
Well, I had a I'm running out of the beer that Rich brought down, but I had a Trogs Troganator in the middle of it. And now that I've finished that, yes, it is another glass of Sortilage.
Nice. Well, I think that's all I really had to talk about in terms of tabletop. Throwing something out there. I'm gonna do some thinking, ruminate on it a little bit. I'll let you know maybe next episode what I come up with.
I have one more thing that might be helpful
Hmm.
that you're probably going to hate, but I think it would work. Leave lots of blank spaces for your characters to actually dictate part of what your world is.
I don't hate that at all, actually. I think that's important.
I think it can be even like really direct where you say, all right, you walk into town, describe to me what town looks like.
Hmm. That's probably
I
a
mean, that
little.
one's a little out there.
Yeah, that's a little further than I probably want to go, just because I have some goals for like establishing a particular sort of tone and some thematic stuff for this game. But your point still stands, and this is advice for any dungeon master. As much as the game, the storytelling is a collaborative experience, it's also important that the world is a reflection of the players and the characters that they create. So you need to leave room in your world building, whether it's blanks that you fill in realistically. Your players aren't going to be filling a lot of them in directly, but you're going to be filling them in based on the characters that they've created. You know, you're going to make it their world rather than your world, right? You can't be rigid. And this is something you said in the last episode. You'd planned this particular campaign for the other game that you're running, and Natalie
Oh,
built,
yeah.
her character, and you said, "Oh, okay, well, all that stuff I had planned, that's gone now. We're doing this, right?"
Yeah. Because it was brilliant. And it was really like, it was more fleshed out than anything I've ever done. I'm like, all right, we're just doing that. Like that's the whole thing about like, and it bled over into our campaign too, because the city ghost that you guys are chasing around, that was all based on the stuff that Natalie came up with.
Was good. And, realistically, you're not going to build a world around one player's character all the time, but like to lesser degrees, you should be sort of marrying your world to the characters that your players have created and shifting your own expectations and sort of goals for it to suit.
Yes.
And I think I'm okay at doing that. Just because I am
Yeah.
so dependent on pulling from the character stuff, and where I flounder is when I don't have that meat. And so I got to work hard to get that meat. So it really is about setting the initial stage, the challenge of trying to communicate something that is. So there's two challenges really. One, that the setting, I want to have a vibe, a tone. So think of it akin to a cyberpunk or a steampunk, where there's an aesthetic that gives this flavor. There is certain themes that these aesthetics and flavors lend themselves towards exploring. And I kind of want to do that. It's my setting is sort of lightly etherpunk. So, think of something like Arcane or like Ravnica or something, but like in the early stages. So think of like what would be the industrial revolution for an arcane society, right? Like the very beginning stages of that. So you're going to explore a lot of themes that are sort of street level initially. Your sort of capitalist type themes as well that I can't help but work into my games. You think about the founding of places like the United States, and you got all of your sort of railroad tycoons and, all of that kind of stuff. Oil tycoons, people that are looking at these resources to be exploited and blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to have a lot of that kind of stuff. And I want to reflect that in the world and the themes and the pictures that I paint initially. Like, this is why this is different. This is why steampunk is what it is. This is why cyberpunk is what it is. And I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, but I do want to efficiently establish the palette, the flavor, the tone.
Okay. So here's the thing. Like, I think, and this is just a rough idea, but I think that you can establish, because you're always going to do like session 0 or session 1 is always going to have some kind of, I'm going to read you a page of crap. Right?
Yeah.
And depending on who your players are, that like for a lot of my players, it's a paragraph.
Yeah.
Because after a paragraph, I've lost them. But depending on who your players are, it might be like a short story or, the legend of the person who discovered the land, right? It might be as simple as, here you are in a place that is underpopulated and you're here to, create short-term solutions to long-term problems, right? So, and I wanted to bring Satisfactory in because you really are describing sort of the vibe of Satisfactory as well, right? Like
Yeah.
that, the
Yeah.
capitalist themes and all of that stuff. So you can establish sort of the tone and the theme through your opening monologue type introduction to the thing.
Hmm.
And I think it might make sense to have like a couple of sort of canned ideas of, when something happens or when you need to interject something, where there's a little thing or a little incident that they observe that's like 2 or 3 sentences long.
Yeah.
If you think about like Baldur's Gate 3, there's the one thing where one of the tieflings steals something from one of those 3 mercenary guys, right? And he chases him up the ladder, and it's like, I didn't even steal it, blah blah blah. My mother gave me that, and you can go through it a bunch of different ways. But if you were to observe something like that, it would give you an idea of a little bit of the flavor, right?
Yeah.
And it could be a 2 or 3 sentence thing where you see monocled, bespectacled, top hat wearing, waistcoat toting fella chase an urchin up a ladder, shouting, you stole it, bring it back. And then, like, maybe they just watch it happen
Hmm.
and maybe they interact and you can go either way. But having a 2 or 3 sentence description of this is how that starts, right? And sprinkling that in here, there, and everywhere as they're going through places,
Yeah.
like that can establish a vibe. So here's the thing. I think it's okay to have like 17 pages of exposition as long as you don't deliver it all at once.
That is a valid point for sure. So anyway, that's it's a challenge. I have some ideas. Like you said, going back to Satisfactory, bringing it full circle again. What's interesting about that initial experience with Satisfactory, and that is kind of what I'm trying to do, is what it establishes in the little information that it tells you, right? You start the game, you're in a pod that is literally descending towards a planet. A very, very quick little thing shows up on the screen in front of you, which sort of establishes fix it. You land, you have, like a 3 minute sort of not even instruction for what you're there to do. And it does that job. It establishes the tongue in cheek tone. It establishes the sort of overarching themes that it's going to be exploring throughout the whole game, all in that condensed few minutes. And it doesn't really tell you anything and it doesn't really show you anything. It just hints at stuff and you get it. And that's what I'm looking to do. I need to be able to hint at stuff effectively.
I have a kind of suggestion that I learned, I think, from either Stephen King or Roger Zelazny. I can't remember which. But I remember reading someone describing writing a book. And they talked about, because there's a certain amount of stuff that happens if you're reading a really well written book, right? There's all kinds of stuff that you're making up in your head that is not written on the page.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks and again, I can't remember who said it. One of the tricks they do is they're like, you write out the entire history of everything and all of the shit that's happening in the background. You write that down, whether you write it down physically or whether it's just existing in your head, right? And you just keep that in mind as you're doing all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So it may make sense because I know that like you are, and I mean this as a compliment, a prodigious writer, right? Like you write stuff down and I'm like, holy fuck, how did you write all of that down without just losing track of where you were? So it may actually make sense for you to write all of that shit down and then say, all right, I've got, I don't know, 3 pages of stuff here. I'm going to pick out 6 sentences that are consistent with that. And that's what I'm going to tell the players. So all of the stuff that you've written down, all of the stuff, all of the background, all of the extraneous stuff that you've created is still there, and it will come through in the tone of the very minimal amount of information that you give them,
Mhm.
without giving them all of the stuff that you've written down.
Yeah, and that's similar to what I'm trying to do, I guess. And what I'm trying to do that last step, right? Like the distilling down what I think is important and finding an efficient way to kind of communicate that organically.
Yeah. That is the trick. I know I'm not good at that. I give people hints and they take from it totally different shit than I originally prepared. It's one of the reasons I do a lot less prep than I used to, because I used to prep a bunch of stuff and then give people stuff and then go, well, all that prep was wasted. Now we're doing this. And I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. Oh, speaking of things, I would like to do like 10 seconds of a book report, which is literally just to say that I have started reading the back catalog of Robert Heinlein again.
A book?
That's right. When I was your age, television was called books. And this is a special book.
I will say that I started off with one of his young adult books, which in my case was a mistake, because I was like, I don't know if I really enjoy this. I would almost suggest, if you haven't read Robert Heinlein, read Spider Robinson first, because he gives you a description. Because if you pick the wrong Robert Heinlein book, you're going to be like, oh my God, this man is insane, because he has literally advocated for, in his books, not personally, not the man himself, but in his books, for communism, fascism, capitalism, communism, chaos, racism, and everything in between, outside, and combination thereof. Effectively, right? Like, you'll get to the end of a book and go, wow, I think I might be a fascist. And then you read the next one and go, nope, I think I'm a communist now, right? With just an equal amount of, yeah, this makes total sense.
I didn't know there was a sequel to Mein Kampf.
I don't think that I would go that far. Like, the hero of the story is almost always someone who has like a modicum of common sense, but it is also a very different tone, right? Like, I mean, he started writing in 1946, right? Like, he's dead now, but he would be a very, very old man now. So there's an awful lot of sort of implied misogyny and racism in there. But a lot of the racism is unintentional racism, right? Like, it's a lot of anyway. Like, typically his heroes are people who have an awful lot of common sense and sort of occupy the middle ground. But there's often stuff in there where you're like, I don't know if I agree with that, but I'm upset by how much sense it makes. Anyway. He's a great writer. You should read his stuff, even if you hate it. Read the next one. You'll probably love it, because it's different. Very, very different.
Well, there you go. Anything else then?
I do actually have a parting gift.
Ooh.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Anybody want a peanut?
So, in the course of, doing work every day that, if you're listening, boss, close your ears for a second. The work that I do is incredibly boring. It's very tedious. It's reasonably important, and I don't hate it. It's just a lot of tedious paperwork. So I'm always looking for something to sort of distract the parts of my brain that can't focus on tedium. And I found a YouTube channel, because I really enjoy listening to music while I work, called, I don't even know how to actually say this out loud. So it's JIJ tilde cat jazz tilde. But if you search for JIJ cat jazz, you'll find it. It's super long mixes of various styles of jazz. There's like mellow jazz, there's like improvisational stuff, there's blues stuff, there's, I mean, everything except big band. I haven't found a big band one yet. And the video is literally a static picture, right? It's slightly more animated than the video behind our YouTube content, but not much more. It's just like pictures of cats with instruments. And then I'm listening to it right now, actually, sort of as background music. And it's just like, it's 3-hour mixes to 10-hour mixes of just jazz. It's instrumental. I'm pretty sure it's real people playing real instruments, and it's very good.
I'll have to check it out. Now, after our previous discussion, I'm disappointed to find out that this isn't actually cats playing jazz.
I mean, it could be. It is definitely cat content.
I'll definitely give it a good look. And for the record, mister, the reason that our YouTube content is the way that it is that I don't actually create YouTube videos anymore. I literally upload the audio, it slurps in the RSS, it sort of grabs the audio and creates a video using the podcast logo thing as sort of the background for the video. So it is the way it is because it is the way it is, fucker.
I literally intended no offense.
No, I know.
I'm perfectly happy.
You had this idea a couple episodes ago about us like using like looping train images from Satisfactory and stuff like that to put in. And I got thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I could do that. But then literally I would have 2 copies of everything on our channel because it would be the stuff that comes in from the podcast feed that goes to YouTube Music in audio form and audio video form. And then there would be the YouTube video, which would just basically be the same audio with like extra shit. So
yeah, no, we're not doing that. No, I'll tell you what, for those of you who are listening on a week-to-week basis, if you would like to send us a load of cash so that we can hire an editor to do that, we will do that for you. But until the income of this channel is in the tens of thousands of dollars, I don't think it's going to happen.
Or the tens of dollars maybe would be a good start.
I mean, listen, if you want to buy, you know what we do need to set up some kind of a
tip jar or something. Yeah.
A buy me a beer button, so people can like send us beer. It would be ideal actually if people could actually do like a sort of, here's a drink I suggest and I've sent you enough money to buy one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now that is a good idea.
Yep. I know this guy who does like web content creation type stuff, like who's a web developer type of dude. I should call him and see if he can do that.
Yeah, he's probably.
Ian, if you're listening, I'm talking about you.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the other one is going to say, well, he's too busy trying to be an editor and podcaster and, pretend like he knows what he's doing there.
I think you do a great job. You do a whole shit ton more than I would do, because my original idea for this, if I haven't said this out loud on the podcast before, was let's record ourselves and post it.
Yeah.
And then Shane goes and removes all of the burps and the farts and the hiccups and the stumbles and the 7 minutes of silence as we stare at each other and go, what the fuck are we going to talk about now? And turns it into something that's worth listening to.
The problem is we didn't go far enough, right? Like for that to work, because I have to do what I do now so that we have like, it's the difference between having 5 listeners and 0 listeners, right? Like we would lose those 5 listeners. But we would have to lean harder into that shit so that we could like appeal to like the fetish listeners that are into it.
Ooh. Well, maybe instead of doing like looping train videos from Satisfactory, we could just put like a camera under the desk focused on our feet. We could call it a podiatrist cast.
Oh, no.
Yes, we have reached the pun point of my drunkenness.
Do you want to take that one back?
No, I stand by that. I will die on that hill. I don't think I amuse anyone else as much as I amuse myself.